They're live, and again, Lord help us. So, let's make sure everybody can see it.
Not yet. So we're usually a second.
Yeah. And Instagram.
Oh yeah.
We're good. Cat logged in yet?
No, but Dawn is here. Hi, Dawn. Hi,
Hey,
Carrie.
Dawn, you beat Cat this week. And yeah, I see Cat on Facebook. Awesome. So we're going to get going. Welcome to our May 2nd Saturday SIP, self-isolation party. So we're going to go through two very much crowd favorites. We've been kind of hanging on to these, maybe just a touch too long because we found out that the Noble Meritage is now sold out. So hopefully you guys all have that in your cellar and you've got that poured in your glass today. But first of all, we're going to go through our 2018 Stony Knoll Chardonnay. We call this Stony Knoll because it comes from our second vineyard, which we affectionately call Stony Knoll, which is literally across the road, and that's where our winemaking facility is. Bulk of that vineyard was planted in 1999. So a lot of the clones are unknown because information just wasn't available at that time. So for this vintage, please have it in your glass, and I will do the bottle shot right off the bat because I always forget. There it is, go up top. I love the new camera setup, so I don't have to look at two different things. That's awesome. This is more of what I would call a Chablis style of Chardonnay. So Chablis is the northernmost part of Burgundy. And Burgundy is where Chardonnay originated. And I'll give you a little bit more information about Chardonnay in a few minutes. But our 2018 vintage, talked about the vintage before, so we went to that. So go back to my old broadcasts and watch those. I'll give you a lot of information on that. But Chardonnay started in roughly the 12th century with and I'm going to butcher this name, Cistercian monks.
Good.
Okay, yeah. In the town of Chardonnay, which means place of thistles. You learn something new every day. Generally light to medium body, lean, crisp, very mineral. Which is why I consider this more of a Chablis style because it does have that really rich minerality coming through. Characterized by a lot of green plum, as opposed to those kind of elephant heart plum or dark plum notes, and apple and pear, especially like Granny Smith apple. So it's kind of my favorite kind of tasting note for a Chablis style is that kind of Granny Smith apple note. Chardonnay, cross between Pinot Noir. So Pinot Noir, again, a very promiscuous little grape. He's created a lot of things, including Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc, Pinot Occidental. Yeah, it was a cross between Pinot Noir and, I'm not going to get this name right either, Goulet Blanc, which was brought over by the Romans from Croatia. Chablis reputation is Chardonnay reputation. It's the most widely planted white grape in the world because it has a relative ease of cultivation and ability to adapt. So it grows in a lot of every great wine area in the world. And the wonderful thing about Chardonnay is it takes on the impression of the terroir, but it also takes on the impression of the winemaker as well. It's a very malleable grape. Bad thing about Chardonnay is it loses its acidity. I will speak normally at one time in my life. When it starts to get ripe, the acidity starts to really drop. So you have to be very, very careful when you're getting ready to harvest, that you're harvesting it at the right time. Because if it gets just a slightly overripe, that acidity is just going to drop on you. The other thing is it's very early budding. So if you have a late frost, you can have some issues with your Chardonnay. Chardonnay went through a real bad patch in the 90s and early 2000s. because it is so prolific and there's so many different styles of Chardonnay, and there was a real thing to kind of flood the market with maybe some not so great Chardonnays, heavily oaked and not, palate pleasing. So there became a thing called the ABC Club, anything but Chardonnay, which I will confess I was part of for a number of years. I think once I started getting into my WSET and sommelier courses, you drink a lot of Chardonnay, and then you get to learn to appreciate the better ones. When it's done well, it is absolutely amazing. So I have come around to Chardonnay over the last few years. Getting into this vintage, get my notes. So this is 100% from our Stony Knoll vineyard, which, like I said, is across the street. Planted in 1999. All vertical shoot positions, so traditional growing, as opposed to our modified Scott Henry, which we use for our Reserve and our King's Ransom Chardonnays, as well as not Geneva Double Curtain, which we use for Pinot Noir.
Scott Henry.
Scott, isn't that what it said?
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes. I lost where I was. Winemaking. So whole cluster press, cool fermentation. So the fermentation tanks that we use actually have a jacket around them with glycol, which is very cold, and it actually brings the temperature down. So we're able to control the temperature of the fermentation. So we keep it quite low. So the fermentation happens over a longer period of time. Basically, about 95% of this is done in stainless steel. There will be a barrel or two that Benoit will use, but it'll always be second fill or third fill that he'll use. So it's not imparting a great amount of oak, but again, it's only about 5 or 6% that we're using for that. On to the tasting notes. Okay. First thing that hits me is that kind of nice minerality, that kind of wet stone, but loads of that kind of green plum that I was talking about earlier. So I don't know the name of that kind of plum. Does anybody? Anybody in the comments know? Tell me what a green plum is called. I just call them green plums. Granny Smith apple and like a ripe Bartlett pear is what I'm getting. Get a little bit of citrus zest as well. But again, more that kind of, not lemon or lime, it's more that orange zest.
Yeah. Good call. That minerality just lingers with you on the finish as well when you're sipping this. And I find like for an unoaked Chardonnay, this one, the finish just really sticks with you. It's something that you just have to, it's one of those wines that I love because it makes you kind of stand up and pay attention, because there's little subtleties that are happening in the glass that you just kind of like, oh, what is that? What is that again? And you just have to you put on your thinking cap and kind of go, okay, so that's what that is. Benoit's notes have vanilla in there, but to be honest, I'm not really picking up a whole lot of vanilla. For me, it's all about that kind of richness and that brightness that's coming through on the glass. Okay, Peanut Gallery, you've been really quiet today. What's going on? Well, I'm just trying to catch names, but I should probably share, we've had one suggestion for a new ABC. Always be Chardonnay.
I like that. Always be Chardonnay.
Oh, and Nettie, one of our new wine club members. Hi, darling. She says a green plum is called an UME.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Food pairing. I love this wine with food. And when I get into the recipe lab a little bit later, I got very French this week. Part of my heritage is French, so, and of course with all my recipe labs there's a little bit of history behind them and stuff, and we'll get into that. Shellfish, oysters. If you're not a fan of sparkling, which I don't understand why you would not be, this is your great alternative for oysters on the half shell. If you're not going to do sparkling, you got to do a Chablis style Chardonnay. Paella, because I know that Jim loves paella, and apparently he makes a mean one, although he hasn't invited me over yet. We'll have to do that.
Challenge accepted. There you go.
Soft cheeses, of course, brie. It's kind of like a go-to.
Brie.
Again, I'm a huge fan of sushi and sashimi. They go really, really well with this. Pâtés, because that kind of really richness and that bright acidity kind of really work together to really complement each other well. And I think it was Dawn last week or the week before. Chicken piccata.
Mm-hmm.
She had it with the mingle, I think it was. But I highly suggest you try it with the Stone Vintage Chardonnay. It is such a good pairing. Basically, you want anything that's like really crisp or really delicate foods. Will go really, really beautifully with this Chardonnay. Now, on to, I'm gotten used to calling them my Netflix pairings, but I don't think this movie's back on Netflix yet. But it is spring, and I took a walk today through the vineyard. We have Bluebird boxes, and one of them's got 6 eggs in it already, which is kind of really, really cool.
Which one?
The one in the Merlot block. Yeah, in the Merlot block, it's got 6 eggs.
That's must have happened within the last day or two, because I literally was out like the last day.
Yeah. So, it's time of spring, time of rebirth, especially important in kind of the times that we're in. So my movie pairing, my new word for it now is my movie pairing, is Eat, Pray, Love.
There you go, of course.
One's got Italy in there, which I absolutely, I'm not Italian, but definitely my stomach is. And India, because I've gotten into yoga, and Bali, which is one of the last big trips that I took was to Bali because of that movie. So that's my Netflix pairing or my movie pairing, and I highly suggest you check it out only because what's the actress's name? Julia Roberts. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, she's one of my all-time favorite actresses as well. She's just like very down to earth and very
Nice smile.
everyday.
Smile.
Yeah, and that smile that just kind of lights up everything.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm going through this really quick. I'll tell you, the peanut gallery is like, they're not holding up today.
Well, we've got a few comments. A somewhat biased friend, Dawn, tells us 92 points and still your 4th best Chardonnay.
It's not our 4th best. We do 4 Chardonnays. We do 4 very different Chardonnays. We call Pinot Noir the winemaker's heartache. And what was my note on this? Chardonnay is the winemaker's grape because it is so malleable. You can do it. It takes to oak. It doesn't. If you want to do it Chablis style, it takes to that as well. So it is. And it has this ability to really express terroir in such a unique way that makes it just. The go-to grape. There's a reason why it's the most planted grape in the world. White grape. Cabernet Sauvignon is the actual #1 overall, but Chardonnay is not too far behind. We're gonna move right on, or we got some comments? Okay. Next one will be our perennial favorite, our 2017 Noble Meritage. Give that one a bottle shot, and up there. You have to tell me if I'm hitting it because I can't see.
Oh, you're getting that.
Okay, there we go. This one, it's hard to describe because it's easy yet it's complex yet it's it is our good friend down the road has a Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bill Eggers. Yes. He's like, you shouldn't be selling a Meritage for $21.99. So definitely over delivers for the price point, and that's the idea. It's to kind of wow you, and with something that's easily accessible yet is just an amazing glass of wine.
Friend.
Yes.
Friend is the appropriate term.
Friend,
For this one.
yes. The bulk of the grapes from this came from Stony Knoll, with a little sprinkling coming from our home vineyard here as well. With this vintage, there is a little bit of Oliver grapes in this one as well. Not a huge amount, but there is a little bit of. I think this was the first year that we had some grapes that came from a vineyard in Oliver. 80% Merlot, 16% Cabernet Sauvignon, and then of course we've got our little whisper of Cabernet Franc and Malbec in there as well, but 2% each. This wine is meant to be easy, friendly food, but you can have it on your patio. You can enjoy a glass with your friends and just it's the tannins are soft and velvety. It's so easy and just beautiful fruit. I don't know. I can't say enough about it. Viticulture, for the most part, will be vertical shoot position from the Stony Knoll vineyard. A little bit of Geneva double curtain, of course, from the Cabernet on this side of the ridge. Benwell will cold soak each one of these components about 3 days before he starts fermentation. He tries to keep the fermentation between 25 and 28 degrees. That just allows for a little bit longer extraction time, a little bit longer fermentation, so it really extracts those wonderful fruit flavors coming through, and just allows that wine to really speak. Barrels, but 75% French and about 25% American. American will generally be on the Cab, not on the Merlot. Only about 20% new on this one. Again, we don't want to overwhelm you with the tannins. We want this one to be ready in about a year, as opposed to 2 to 3 years for the reserve. What else? Tasting notes. Okay. Who has it in their glass? Give me a thumbs up. Come on. It's just really full, really rich on the palate. This is big and juicy. The aromas on the on the nose are just like they're really complex. You really have to kind of stand up and pay attention because there's a lot going on there. We got lots of blackberry, black tea, and there's a subtle earthiness there too. There's quite a bit of earthiness coming through, and I think that's because of the Malbec attaching itself to the Merlot and just really kind of bringing those notes up to the forefront. And a little bit of raspberry, but kind of black raspberry, not that kind of red raspberry. It's more black raspberry for me. Dark cherries. One of my instructors always said, if you're ever stuck on a tasting note, just say cherry. But there is definitely more of that kind of dark Bing cherry, really ripe cherry coming through. And I get a little bit of cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite chocolate, but more of that cocoa bean.
Yeah, there's a difference.
I always catch that touch of like baking spice to the finish as well.
I like that term.
The spice.
That's a good one for, but non-bakers, you should describe
Yeah,
that.
baking spice, definitely a little bit of that kind of like clovey, cinnamony kind of.
Grandma's salt and pepper shaker.
Ginger.
Yeah.
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 I think that's why a lot of people like Meritage blends in the winter, is because it kind of almost get that baking spice and those dark cherry notes kind of start to remind you of the holidays and stuff.
Mm.
I like them in the spring because it's kind of, you get that little bit of hint of nostalgia, but then you've got that new stuff coming through as well. So it's like that looking forward to what's coming up and all that. That's why I'm a little bit odd, as opposed to I drink a lot of whites in the winter and a little bit more reds in the spring and fall.
Contrast.
Yeah, well, I've never been accused of being normal, so.
Boring.
That's boring.
We wouldn't have you any other way. Cheers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we have to,
Ching.
there we go.
Social distancing.
Um,
yeah.
Food pairing, whatever you got in your pantry
Mm.
is gonna go. You know, of course, you think of red wine, you think of red meat. So barbecue, definitely. I'm giving my little nod to Jim there. Ribs, anything with tomato base, it's got a really nice acidity to it, so it can handle tomato. For a wine to be able to be a fairly good pairing with tomato or acidity, it's got to have that acidity there as well. So, okay.
Some nice comments coming through on Instagram. We've got Chris Reynolds talking about this is he's fairly new to our wine club, and this Meritage is my favorite and our new go-to wine.
Yes.
Welcome and thank you.
There's currently a waiting list for the Meritage, but
We're working on that.
we're working on that. We have an inventory meeting on Monday, so I hope you'll be able to know where we sit there. So my movie pairing, I'm going to show my age here a little bit, is Star Wars, the original, number 4, A New Hope. Because this wine is very reminiscent of when I was starting to get into wine and starting getting into, well, I was too young then, but I love sci-fi, and I love the whole idea and whole premise of the Star Wars series. And in my brain, the first one is still the best. So that's my movie pairing. I'm pretty sure it's not on Netflix, but I think I downloaded it. So it's on my computer, and there's certain movies, just like certain books, that I come back to perennial. Like every couple of years, I watch the entire Star Wars thing. And to be honest, I haven't really watched the last 3. I don't think I've seen the last one.
I've seen the last one.
I haven't seen the very last.
But I did see the one previous to that with my sister and my niece. But I think I almost fell asleep halfway through. But yeah.
Good.
We're just moving through today.
Yeah, that's all good. A couple more shout outs. Lauren Sporty, also, Meritage is definitely my everyday wine. I used to call it my Tuesday night wine.
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So going on to the recipe lab, like I said, I went a little French this week. My mother is 50% French, so I guess that makes me a quarter. And like all of my recipes, this one I actually stole from Anthony Bourdain, because he's one of my all-time favorite chefs. And when I was growing up, one of the things that was, when it was your birthday, you got to pick dinner for that night. So I always did. I love escargot. I was a weird child. How many children do you know that want to eat snails? Yeah. Okay, so I'm not the only one. That's good. That's good. It's good to know.
Just think about
And then surf and turf was always my thing. Crab legs and steak. So this is a recipe for escargot or snails. The recipe I'm going to give you is for 4, but because it's just me and Ollie, I cut it in half.
he didn't quite know what to make of them, but you know, he managed to scarf up his share, that's for sure. So you take 24 escargot. You're not going to find fresh. You always use the canned ones. Believe it or not, I found them at Walmart. Who knew? Because they didn't have them at Superstore. Strange. I used half a shallot. I used a shallot thinly sliced, half a cup of white wine. Of course, I used the Chardonnay for that. Head of garlic peeled and separated, an ounce of flat parsley leaves, 4 ounces of butter, or maybe a little more, salt and pepper, and then of course a baguette to soak up all the juices. So,
Sounds great.
yes.
Butter.
Now I'm hungry.
I don't use the shells. My mom has these wonderful little dishes that go in the oven that have like 6 little holes in them or whatever, and that's what I used. So in the saute pan, combine the escargot, the shallot, and the white wine. Bring it to a simmer, about 15 minutes. So you want to really reduce that. Set your escargot aside. I know they're kind of ugly, but believe me, they're delicious. Then combine your garlic and parsley and make it into like a smooth parsley butter. Place your little snailies in the little thingies or in the shells if you're using that. Top each one off with the parsley butter, and then you're going to broil it for roughly 15 minutes or so. Just until the butter is nice and bubbly and ooey and gooey and delicious. And then serve it immediately with the baguettes. And then that was my first course. So I got a little decadent this week. And then my second course, because I did the lamb shoulder last week, I had some lamb left over. Instead of doing beef bourguignon, I substituted the beef for the lamb. So I did a lamb bourguignon, and that's what I had with the meritage. Yeah, a little bit of, we went a little decadent this week, but I think we deserved it. So I'll put both of those recipes up on our website tomorrow. I'm going to talk a little bit about next week in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about our wine club. One of the happy accidents of COVID-19 is that we've been able to reallocate some wines. So we've been able to open up our wine club a little bit for the first time in a year and a half. So we have a little bit of space. I'm not saying a lot. We have a few spaces. So if you are not part of our round tables, which we call our wine club, it is for the next, well, until the spaces are full. It is open now, so you can sign up online for that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to have Leslie introduce the wines for next week. They're right there. Back over there.
Oh, 6 feet.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And for one of the wines, I'll let Leslie explain it, but it is, sneak peek, brand new. Get it while you can.
You remind me if I forget anything. Okay?
Yes, I will. Okay.
Hi, everyone. And what they're all giving me heck is I have to keep remembering our 6 feet and our physical distancing, and we're working really hard. We're changing the tasting room, in fact, so we can kind of make sure we are doing all the right things and being safe, and hope you're all also being safe and being well. Preston asked me to join in here at the end to introduce what we're going to do next week. We have they've asked me to get involved for a couple of reasons. Mother's Day. So I'm a very proud and happy mother, and I'm super happy to celebrate Mother's Day. I have the good fortune to have a mom who just turned 90 last week, and I have 3 wonderful children. So I have lots of things to celebrate about Mother's Day. So what better way to celebrate than, yes, you guessed it, sparkling. So we have something, we will be talking about our traditional sparkling, the one, which many of you, I hope, have tried. We will be talking to that. Particularly exciting, however, though, is a brand new release. I don't think anyone's See, it's going to be hard to see because it's this really groovy bottle. It's a transparent bottle, and it's called, is that going anywhere for you? The Fizzy One. Brand new. It's a Prosecco style, light, bright, fun, non-vintage. We've had so much fun with this wine and have all kinds of ideas and plans for it in the future. It is literally not readily available yet. We are officially releasing it on Saturday. If you do want to get some for next week, contact Preston directly. Either phone 250-497-7945 or Preston at nobleridge.com. Email. So that's the Fizzy One. And then we will also be talking the one of my favorites. There we are. Our traditional full-bodied French-style traditional method sparkling wine. So that's what will be on deck for next week. Everything? Now I need to exit so Preston can come and say goodbye.
Okay, yes. So yeah, we're very excited about the Fizzy One. We've been working on that for a little bit now. It came about because with our traditional sparkling, it's ready when it's ready, and it will not be rushed. But we wanted to expand on our wonderful sparkling program, and I think that it is absolutely amazing, and we'll talk more about it next week. Our Noble Roundtable, you're going to get a notice on Monday about a pre-release for that. But in the meantime, anybody that's watching this, if you want to pick up some bottles for next week so you can go through the tasting with Leslie, again, just call me at the winery or send me a quick email, and we can arrange to make sure that you have some on hand for that. But other than that, we're going to say goodnight and hope everybody has an amazing week. Some awesome things happening in the vineyard. We actually just bottled the 2019 sparkling that's now gone to bed for the next 3 to 4 years. So it's been, plus if you follow us on social media, you saw it, we're testing some sparkling this week, which was kind of always fun. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. But yes, we'll see you next week, and awesome to virtually see you all, and enjoy the week, and I will see you next Saturday.
Cheers. Bye.